Wadful Frostwind. Wadful Frostwind was the name on the birth certificate. A cruel joke considering the paperwork was filed during a particularly sweltering heatwave. I wasn't much for names, really. Just a man, a drafty observatory, and a peculiar obsession with the void. My days were predictably, blessedly dull, charting ice crystal formations in nebulae. A perfectly pointless pursuit, really, much like most things. The observatory, perched on the highest peak of Mount Cinder, was perpetually coated in frost, a little piece of winter stubbornly refusing to yield to the planet's tepid climate. It suited me. I preferred the company of cold things. They didn't ask questions. They just were. And I was quite content being their observer, lost in the beautiful, meaningless vastness of space. The disruption arrived, as most disruptions do, in the form of bureaucracy. A woman, crisp uniform, even crisper voice, calling herself Agent Bellwether. She didn't bother with pleasantries. Just a file, thick as a tombstone, and a directive. The Global Aeronautics Consortium, GAC, naturally, had detected an anomaly. A temporal distortion near the Kepler 186F system. Apparently, someone, or something, was messing with time. And because I was the only certified cryomancer astrophysicist on the planet, a title I'd accidentally acquired after a particularly long night and a generous grant application, I was the one tasked with fixing it. National security, she'd said, as if national security had ever given a damn about a man who preferred the company of ice crystals. The universe, it seemed, had a warped sense of humor. I could have refused. I seriously considered it. Retired to a glacier, perhaps. Lived off frozen rations and ignored the pleas of frantic bureaucrats. But then I looked at the data. The distortion wasn't random. It was intentional. And the energy signature, it was chillingly familiar. It resembled a technique my grandfather, a rather eccentric inventor who'd vanished decades ago during a GAC-funded project, had been developing. Something about harnessing temporal energy using concentrated cryomancy. A dangerous, foolish idea, even by his standards. I made my decision. I would go. Not for national security, not for the GAC, but for a ghost. A foolish, sentimental decision. But then again, I'd always been a sentimental fool. The journey was unremarkable. A cramped spaceship, recycled air, and endless simulations. The GAC, predictably, treated me like a glorified tool. I endured their lectures on protocol, their patronizing explanations of modern astrophysics, and their incessant demands for progress reports. But I pressed on, delving deeper into the anomaly. It was more complex than they'd initially estimated. The distortion wasn't a simple tear in space-time. It was a carefully constructed loop, a repeating pattern of energy. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized my grandfather hadn't just been experimenting with time. He'd been trying to escape it. He'd left a trail of clues, hidden within the distortion itself, coded messages only a cryomancer would understand. And he'd clearly succeeded, at least partially. He was somewhere within the loop, lost in time. The midpoint twist arrived in the form of a transmission. A garbled voice, static-ridden and faint, but undeniably my grandfather's. He wasn't trying to escape time. He was trying to warn us. The distortion wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was a weapon. A temporal weapon designed to unravel the fabric of reality, created by a rogue GAC scientist named Dr. Eris Thorne. Thorne, my grandfather explained, believed humanity was a mistake, a blight on the universe, and he intended to erase it from existence. My grandfather had tried to stop him, but Thorne had trapped him within the loop, hoping to silence him forever. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving me reeling. The mission had changed. It wasn't about rescuing my grandfather. It was about saving the universe. Thorne, it turned out, wasn't just a brilliant scientist. He was a ruthless pragmatist. He'd fortified the distortion with layers of temporal defenses, creating a labyrinth of paradoxes and time loops. Each attempt to penetrate the defenses triggered a cascade of anomalies, threatening to unravel my own sanity. My cryomancy, normally a source of comfort, felt inadequate, fragile against the raw power of temporal energy. I faced a moral dilemma. To breach the defenses, I would have to risk collapsing the loop, potentially erasing my grandfather from existence. But to hesitate was to allow Thorne to continue his destructive plan. The weight of the universe, it seemed, rested on the shoulders of a sentimental fool who preferred the company of ice crystals. I spent days, or perhaps weeks. Time had lost all meaning, calibrating my cryomancy, weaving a counterspell designed to neutralize Thorn's temporal defenses. It was a risky maneuver, requiring absolute precision and a complete disregard for my own safety. I reinforced my mental shields, bracing myself against the inevitable paradoxes and temporal distortions. I reached out to my grandfather, using my cryomancy to establish a tenuous connection within the loop, seeking his guidance. He warned me about Thorn's final defense, a temporal anchor, a device that would lock the distortion in place, making it impervious to any external interference. I needed to disable the anchor before I could breach Thorn's defenses. It was a suicide mission, but I was out of options. The confrontation with Thorn was anticlimactic. He wasn't the mad scientist I'd expected, just a tired, disillusioned man, convinced he was doing the right thing. He tried to reason with me, to explain his vision of a universe cleansed of humanity, but I wasn't listening. I unleashed a concentrated blast of cryomancy, shattering his temporal defenses and disabling the anchor. He fought back, unleashing a torrent of temporal energy, but my cryomancy proved superior. I encased him in a prison of ice, freezing him in time, effectively neutralizing his threat. The distortion began to collapse, the loop unraveling. My grandfather's presence flickered, growing fainter with each passing moment. He offered a final, grateful smile before fading away completely. I returned to Mount Cinder, a changed man. The GAC hailed me as a hero, showering me with awards and accolades. But I didn't care. The universe was safe, but at a cost. My grandfather was gone, lost to the currents of time. I resumed my work at the observatory, charting ice crystal formations in nebulae. But the beauty of the cosmos felt different now, tinged with a melancholy I hadn't known before. I continued my research, but my focus shifted. I began to study the nature of time itself, searching for a way to understand the forces that had shaped my life. Perhaps, I thought, there was a way to honor my grandfather's memory, to find meaning in the vast, indifferent universe. And so, I continued to observe, to ponder, and to freeze, lost in the cold, beautiful silence of space.